Thank you. Yeah, so I'll be presenting on measuring the impact of transaction cost on profitability of farmers, and its evidences from India. And my co-author, I work with the Christ deemed to be University, India, and my co-author is also from mathematical background, Ruchika Rai. She also work in the same department. So it's a so basically in this particular article, we're trying to quantify the impact of asymmetric information and opportunities behavior to the farmer. So this is entirely based on the primary survey. This is the outline of my presentation. Initially, introduction, review of literature, and then empirical findings, and then policy and suggestions. In this particular, I shall be using the terminology of modern food retail chain or supermarket. So what we are basically doing, we're trying to see if the farmers are connected with the modern food retail chain or supermarket, what kind of challenges they are facing. We're trying to look this from an institutional point of view. If there is a lack of institutional framework, which is if the supermarket behave opportunistically or modern food retail chain behave opportunistically, how that will impact on the profitability of farmers. So supermarket is coming up, of course, China, India, they are expanding in a rural area and they are purchasing directly from the farmer. So when they are purchasing directly for the farmer, we need to look at, it's basically, they have expanded because there is a huge increase in demand for quality products, particularly from an urban area. So the supermarket are directly started purchasing from the farmers. So there is a lot of shift of procurement by the supermarket. They have started directly purchased from the farmers. Some of them are purchased from the middleman, and some of them are still relying on the APMC. Again, the foreign direct investment has entered in India. Even though now the supermarket are increasing and expanding which a very high rate, the small farmer participation are relatively lesser as compared with other. So the existing literature has talked about the supermarket has significantly helped the farmer for increasing their income, and they have helped. So some of the study have found that they have basically helped the medium and large farmer. But then little is known about the the effectiveness of contract farming, which is used by the supermarkets. We are basically looking for more institutional framework. We are using more institutional economics framework. But then generally we understand that the contract farming, which is between farmer and supermarket, help the farmer to grow the profit, to grow their profit or help them. But then because of a lack of enforcement or lack of institutional arrangement, farmers are facing a lot of problem. In addition to that, small farmers are not being able to participate. Many studies have been tried to understand why the farmers are not participating and all. There are a lot of studies who have come up with this kind of findings, but then most of them have neglected the major constraint which is faced by the small and large farmer. Small and medium farmer is the transaction cost, which is outcome of the institutional framework, which is outcome of the asymmetric information or opportunities behavior. Now, what's the transaction cost? There are three major economics we are trying to look into the transaction cost. One is Oler Williamson, Ronald Coase, and Douglas North. Now, they have basically tried to identify the transaction cost. Williamson has tried to identify the reason for transaction cost and why it incurred. So all of them, the institutional economics have realized that it's a very difficult to measure the transaction cost, and some of the study have tried to develop some proxy variable for measuring the transaction cost. So these are the proxy variable. So I'm extending their work. Now, why transaction cost is increasing and why it is important for a farmer? Because supermarket are basically trying to purchase very superior quality from the farmers, and there is a lot of variation which is happening in the prices which is offered by the supermarket. In addition to that, there are a lot of uncertainty. What kind of products is being purchased by the supermarket? What is the price they are offering? Potential buyer, opportunities behavior, and so on and so forth. These are some of the problems which are which are impacting on the farmers. Now, what we are basically doing in this article, we are trying to quantify the transaction cost incurred by the farmer for three different type of supermarket. One supermarket who has a production contract, which is supplying inputs as well as fixed price and technical guidance. Another is the marketing contract, which just supply the, let's say, the technical advice, and they are a little bit offering higher price. And second is the independent farmer. So we are comparing all these three different channels of supermarket, and we are looking at how the increase in opportunities behavior and absence of systematic information impact on their farmer income. And in addition to that, we are trying to look at how the transaction cost impact on the profit of the farm. So this is the objective of our study. We are empirically measuring the transaction cost, and we are also trying to look at how that is impacted on the farmer profitability for different two type of supermarket. Now, this is India. This is the state of India where we have done the primary survey. This is the area. So this is a district called Kolar, and these are the villages where we have conducted the primary survey. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, that we have selected total 300 farmers. Now we have selected the farmers who are growing chili, green chili. I'm sure all of you are aware. Now we have selected 100 farmers from production contract, which is a output and input contract, a marketing contract, which is a output contract, only the supplying the, only giving the, only giving the technical advice and price. And then third is we have the independent farmer. I think someone had joined. Ma'am, are you the chairperson for this session? Christina, ma'am, because we are not sure. Could you just, okay, I think I'll just continue. Okay, so yeah, so shall I continue, Christina, ma'am?
Yes, go ahead. So sorry, I apologize.
Okay, so you are chairing the session, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I'm Dr. Kedar. I'm presenting this from India. Okay, so I just began. I'll just spend 1 minute to tell you. So yeah, so what we are doing, ma'am, just we are trying to compare, we are trying to see how the opportunities, behavior, and asymmetric information impact on the profitability of farmers. We have selected the farmers who are selling their chili to the supermarket. So we have two different type of supermarket. One is which I'll explain next slide. So we are looking at how the opportunities, behavior, and asymmetric information impact on their profitability with the farmer. And we are trying to look at how the transaction costs prevent their, their participation. So, ma'am, this is a map where we did the primary survey, and these are the selected villages. We did the survey from India, Karnataka state, Kolar district. So on an average, we have approximately, we have selected 300 farmers, chili farmers. So now we have selected 100 farmers where well-defined institutional framework is available. That's output and input contract. We have selected 100 farmer where output contract is available, and we have independent farmer where they sell to the traditional market, spot market. So total 300 farmers. Now, how we have quantified the asymmetric information and opportunities behavior. So these are the proxy variable we have used for quantifying the transaction cost. So so we have three type of transaction cost. Now, information cost, which incurred by the farmer when they are selling to the supermarket. A1 now, so they are just trying to get the information about the supermarket, and they are incurring some cost. We're calling it as the information cost. So this is cost basically incurring by the farmer for getting the price information and getting the quality information about the chili. So this is how we have quantified the opportunity information cost. Now for bargaining cost, we have tried to look at if they behave opportunistically when the contract is written, but the enforcement is lacking. So we have looked at if the supermarket behave opportunistically, how it will impact on the farmer. So we have looked at the cost and time spent for negotiating the price and quantity with the supermarkets, and we have also looked at the monetary value due to the opportunity behavior. This is how we have defined the opportunities cost. And third is the monetary cost. Now farmer know that supermarket are spending a lot of time they are spending and they are rejecting their quality. So the farmer put a lot of extra effort so that they will try to reduce the opportunities behavior. So this is how we have defined the opportunities behavior. So this is the supervision cost by the farmer to take care of the rejection rate by the supermarket. Okay, now we have used the propensity score matching to overcome the selection bias. I'll not go into much because there are Heckman and instrument variable is approach, but then propensity score matching is having more advantages because we need not assume any functional form, and it's very difficult to find the instrument variable. So this technique we have used. So we also taken care of the Rebesnik check for understanding that the model is suitable. Now this is a one way. So this is, you can see that this is a one way to see that the model is quite good because our treated on support and untreated on support is overlapping. This is a good model. This is called good model. This is called bad model, the score of propensity score matching. So we have taken care of the, okay. In addition to that, there should be reduction in the selection bias. These are the way to make sure that the model is well defined. Now I'll not go to the, okay. Now this is a descriptive statistic. We have three different supermarkets. So production contract farmer are having advantages in those descriptive statistics as compared with marketing contract versus independent farmer. Now, what I want to do, this is a probit model, which I'm not going to discuss. I'll directly go to the major finding. Okay, so now what we are basically found is that if there is asymmetric information and opportunities behavior, farmer have incurred 33,000 per acre, rupees per acre transaction cost. And if you include, so if in fact you see here, if you include the transaction cost in the net profit calculation, farmer has almost lost a lot of income for marketing a production contract. Similarly, that is also been found for a marketing contract. Now let's quickly understand same thing in a very easy way. So yes, supermarket are offering them huge price, no doubt. So there's a 21 rupees per kg chili supermarket has offered to the farmers. Again, this is again for marketing contract, the procurement price is relatively less. Now, but then even if they are offering premium price, the transaction cost is a major problem here, which is 16,000. Now let's quickly look at if they include the transaction cost in the profit, how much farmer has declined their net income. Now this is actually for production contract. So this is a total profit. And if you include the transaction cost, the profit has declined by 25%, 24.9%. Profit has declined for production contract. Now for marketing contract, the profit, which is comparatively less as compared with production contract, the profit has declined by 21.2%. This is the outcome of asymmetric information opportunities behavior. Now, within that, if you look at actually, the monitoring cost is shown significantly higher weightage than comparing the other, followed by bargaining cost and then information cost. So so monitoring cost is a major problem which farmers are incurring. Now how we can reduce that, the monitoring cost or the transaction cost? This is our suggestion. What we feel is that if we have to overcome the asymmetric information problem, we feel that we need to make sure that the farmers are aware about the quality which the supermarket are purchasing, particularly texture, shape, flavor, color, variety. Again, we need to connect the collective farming. We need to develop the collective farming and FPOs so that the farmer are not facing the asymmetric information problem. To overcome the bargaining cost, we need to make sure that all the contracts, we need to make sure that the government should develop some enforcement mechanism so that we can take care of the negotiation. So there should not be, let's say, there should be 100% enforcement, which is lacking in India. And third, also, we need to develop the ability of the farmer to produce better quality. So at the end, what is my conclusion? What we found is that if the institutional frameworks should help the farmer to increase their profit. Now in India, it is helping the farmer, but then because of the lack of enforcement, the there is still scope for opportunities, behavior, and asymmetric information. This is what we found. Again, all the existing study has overestimated the benefit from the supermarket without looking at the transaction cost. This is a drawback, or this is a major contribution from our study. So what we suggest is that we need to develop a well-defined, proper institutional arrangement, and we also make sure that there is 100% enforceability. We also need to make sure that there should be some kind of provision for procurement from small and marginal farmer. We need to come up with some policy suggestions. And at the end, what I want to conclude saying that small and marginal farmers are not excluded from the supermarket, but it is their ability. They are not being able to produce well. And why they are not being able to produce well? Because of the lack of enforcement and lack of institutional arrangement. So with this, I would like to conclude my session, and thank you, Professor Christina. Thank you so much, and I look forward for your comments and suggestions. Thank you. Yeah. Are you able to hear me? Professor Lee, can you just, are you able to hear me? Yeah.
Yes. Right. Well, that's very interesting research, and actually, when I took the course at MSU provided by Thomas Reardon, one of the authors of the paper that you cited, it's always very fascinating to learn about the supermarket in developing countries. And one thing that I would love to learn further would be how you address the selection bias over your research, because at the first glance, I was thinking when you choose 100 interviewers in each of the groups, there could be potential issues over there, but because of time, we don't have this further information. So probably if you may have the manuscript uploaded, I will try to figure it out in your manuscript. But overall, this is a very interesting research, and good. I can read it here today.
Thank you so much. I will answer. Probably I'll collect from everyone and then I'll answer. Is that fine, Christina? Is that fine? Okay. Dr. Langchang, do you have any suggestions, any comments?
No, I think it's a really great and interesting research. And my question is the same as Professor Lee about the identification issue. That would be the major issues in the empirical study like this one, right? But I think you have done a lot of the robustness check, but given this short period of time, maybe we cannot, you cannot talk too much about that, but we can talk more about that later.
Okay. So I think, yeah, so how I did, of course, what I did is basically like, I have used the propensity score matching, because right now we have this instrument variable, and we also have Hickman selection bias. But the problem right now here is that it's quite difficult to find the instrument variable. And again, in Hickman selection bias, we basically, we are in a propensity score matching, we are not defining any functional form. But in a Hickman selection bias, we may have to. So therefore, we thought not to go ahead with those, and then we just use a propensity score matching. I know the Hickman selection bias or instrument variable is a better technique for measuring the impact or overcoming the selection bias. But since we are facing those difficulty for finding the proper instrument, so we thought to use the propensity score matching. But then thank you. I really appreciated both the suggestions. I'll try to probably look into this again. It's a good suggestion. Any suggestion? Any other?
No, I have no further question.
Okay. So in that case, Ma'am, Christina, ma'am, do you have any question? Okay. So I think, shall I close the, shall I? Oh yeah, I think I got some message probably. Yeah, sorry, my micro is not working. Well, I have no suggestion. Thank you for a great. Okay, thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Yeah, sorry, not a problem. So shall I? I'll stop sharing. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, just give me 1 minute. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, yeah. Now, I think, ma'am, who is the present? Next person can start.
So, I guess it would be me, right? According to the orders listed on the section. Okay, so let me share my screen because my video, my cam has some problem. Just 1 minute. Okay. So I suppose now you can see the slides over here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So enlarge it. Okay, right. So good day, everyone. This work is collaborated with our co-author, Dr. Loretta Singletary from University of Nevada, Reno. In this research, we're trying to investigate how farmers would respond to the prior forecast information of weather events or weather conditions, different from the current literature, which lies the forecast on if farmers would adopt the forecast information or if what might be the factors that prevents farmers to adopt such forecast information. Our research try to address how farmers would learn from the prior forecast information, which may be inaccurate according to the realized weather events, or which might be updated due to some new incoming information. So because of time, let me just cut to the chase and give you a little bit background regarding this research. First of all, we know the climate has been changing. Okay, so for example, the annual temperature each year is basically going up, just like this graph shows, right? However, year by year, between years, the temperature might, in this year, might just break up the historical record, but the next year, it would just drop so much. So we observe more and more extreme weathers together with the volatile weather conditions. Okay, and such kind of extreme weather events or volatile weather conditions have led to huge economic losses as well as the loss in human lives. Here is a summary table from the US in the past 40 years. And we can see only in the last 5 years from 2017 to 2021, the economic loss would account for about 35% of the overall loss in the past 40 years. So the cost because of such extreme weather event or volatile weather conditions has been increasing. And I believe actually the decision makers would love to have reliable weather forecasts so that they can adapt to such a situation in their in their decision maker procedure. And this would be particularly the case for agricultural producers such as farmers or ranchers, because the production, this industry actually relies more on weather conditions, right? And it is not surprise for us to find that several studies have verified that farmers can benefit from weather forecast information. Okay, so however, we also learned that it is impossible to have a perfect weather forecast. There's always more or less the inaccuracy when if just from the weather forecast before the weather events or weather conditions are really realized. Okay, so another line of the studies also verify that imperfect information, the inaccuracy or the forecast errors could prevent the use of forecast information by farmers or the decision makers. But we actually wonder if this is always the case for all farmers around the world, or for farmers who has long been suffered from limited resources, such as scarcity over their decades of decision or the cropping decision procedures. So we wonder maybe these farmers who have suffered from whether, let me rephrase it, those farmers who have suffered more from such volatile weather conditions may actually learn from such from the past experience, past information, instead of just ignore it, as the existing studies would suggest. Okay, and in fact, the best rule states that rational economic agents would actually use all available past information, either it's accurate or not, and adapt it for their future decisions. So that's the motivation for us to see if farmers learn from the past forecast errors. In addition, we have this motivation because for farmers especially farmers in Western United States, they are more motivated to learn from the forecast information because the probability to receive water for each farmer or for each of the water right holders is different. So there's no such kind of free rider effect for farmers. They need to learn either regarding the weather forecast. So that's one motivation we have. The other is with the potential updates of or with the more availability of forecast information that might be giving more updates in the information. Farmers would also be affected by such kind of situation. So we posit that farmers would incorporate prior weather information, and we use the water supply forecast as the example in our study. Okay, so our study area is Carson Valley in Nevada, which has several unique features that would allow us to identify the effect of our interest and isolate it from other potential co-founders. Because of time, I'm not going through all the details, but I would like to address two of the key features. One is that the USDA NCRS reports the stream flow forecast every year for Nevada. And this report actually predicts the gives the forecast volume of stream flow instead of an aggregate abstract index for the available surface water like they do for other states in the Western US. So this feature would allow us to measure the potential forecast errors with the realized stream flow volume. So that's the key feature of the data set and the study area we have. The other feature is that in this study area, because it's relatively small, so in general, the overall weather conditions other than water supply are almost identical. Say the temperature is basically the same across the region, and the evapotranspiration is also identical for most of the crops over there. So it makes our work much easier to identify the effect. Okay, so this is the graph that shows where the study area, the Carson Valley is. It's actually around the kink along the California-Nevada borderline. It's here. So this graph, the graph on the right hand side of the screen actually shows the land parcels of our study. So we have actually 77 land parcels. Each would have their own unique water right to receive water, which in terms of water right in this region, because of the prior appropriation doctrine used by Nevada government. So each farmers would have different probability to receive the full water that might be allocated in a drought year. Okay, so this graph shows how we overlap the water right, the crop condition, and other data set into one. So because of time, I'm not going to elaborate too much about it as well. So overall, our data source is from most of the USDA websites, as well as the Nevada Division of Water Resources. Okay, here it shows, this slide shows model specification we have. Overall, we assume that the dependent variable, we use dependent variable as the percentage of a major crop in this region is alfalfa. So the dependent variable should be the percentage for alfalfa being cropped, being grown in each of the land parcel. But because of the nature of this dependent variable, we have to assume it as a fractional response model, which will range from 0 to 1. So we transfer this percentage into 0 to 1, and we assume this fractional model would have a linear form with the latent variable. Okay, so in the linear form, we have two major variables that captures the effect of our major interest. The first one is the forecast error from the prior year. Okay, so we compare the difference between the forecast volume of stream flow versus the realized stream flow in last year, and to construct this variable, we also have a variable that measures to what extent the forecast might be updated in the January version of the forecast being released by USDA versus the version being released in April, which is the last month of the growing, prior to the growing season. So we can see the potential anchoring effect by this variable. And other set of variables are those factors that might also influence the cropping decisions. Okay, so to estimate a fractional response model, we first follow the Peck and Woodridge. Peck and Woodridge in either in 1906 or 28, as well as Woodridge in 2010. So we have two methods to estimate this fractional response model, either in GE or QMLE. And for comparison, we also considered a two-limit random effect topic. In addition to the explanation method, we consider the potential violation of strict exogeneity assumption, and we adopt Morlock-Chamberlain approach to address this issue as suggested by Peck and Woodridge. Okay, so here this table shows summary statistics, and for the potential forecast error over the 10-year in our data set, we can see the mean error is pretty limited. It's only about 3%. Okay, however, the standard deviation is 20%, and it could be as much as 90% over forecasted, or 27% underestimated. Okay, and the modification from the January to April forecast could be like 10,000 cubic meters over on average. Okay, so that's a basic statistics we have. Here it shows the regression result. It's actually the coefficients of the two key variables we are interested, but we can see that overall they are significant, suggesting our assumptions are valid. But these numbers is hard to be interpreted directly because this is the nonlinear function. So the average marginal effect cannot be directly represented by the coefficients. Therefore, we estimate the marginal effect, and we can see from this table, for 1% increase of the forecast error, there could be about 0.15% of the less of the crop or irrigated region in each land parcel on average. So that means farmers to learn from the past forecast errors. So if last year the forecast error was 1% higher than the realized water or stream flow, then this year the farmers would reduce about 0.15% of the irrigated region, just in case the just because of the error. Okay. The second row, it shows when the modification of the two versions of this year's forecast is higher, then the farmers would actually increase more irrigation regions. So farmers become more optimistic if the later version of the forecast is getting higher. So this suggests the potential anchoring effect from the January version of the forecast. Okay, and in this table, we further consider the potential effect under a drought condition, which means if there's an extreme drought like the historical low stream flow in this region, then farmers would further reduce, would have a stronger effect in the under this situation. Okay, so so overall, farmers would learn from prior water supply forecasts. Either it's the forecast error in last year or the updates from this year. So that verifies, that validates our assumptions. Also, these effects would be a little bit stronger in extreme years. And the policy implication here is that if we can increase the access, farmers' access to the water supply forecast and have this forecast being released regularly, then probably farmers can still be motivated to learn from this prior information instead of just ignore it as some other studies would suggest. Okay. In the future, we are trying to further adjust and emphasize the interdependence among water allocation regimes and the prior forecast information. But we are still working on it. And in addition, we would try to further compare the such kind of effect across regions that have different water allocation regimes other than prior proportion doctrine, say correlative rights doctrine. So that's the two lines we are trying to work on. So that's our presentation today. If any one of you have any comments and or questions, please feel free to let me know. I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, Lee. So it's an interesting paper. And my question is, how can you model explain the farmers' Bayesian update behavior, right? Because you investigate the impact of the focus error on the farmers' irrigation behavior, if I'm right. And how can you explain that more like a dynamic Bayesian update procedure?
Yes, so basically logic is like this. If farmers observe the forecast information, they would incorporate it into their crop decision this year, right? And that's before the weather conditions is realized. However, after that, the next year, farmers would observe the realized weather condition. Actually, it's the realized stream flow. So they learn from the past in terms of the difference between the forecast last year as well as the as well as the realized stream flow. So they know how much the inaccuracy was in last year, and they would therefore take this into their consideration. So that's the situation that we call it a kind of Bayesian update. However, this is not a very classic Bayesian update in the sense of dynamic econometrics or so. So we just take this the core idea to describe the situation or the effect we found.
Okay, and one more question. Have you considered the difference between like the positive focus error and the negative focus error?
Oh, yes. So actually this variable measure the forecast error by, we have the forecast volume, which remove minus the realized volume and divided by realized volume. So it's actually the percentage change it's the percentage of inaccuracy. So we have both positive and negative. So we take both into the consideration already.
Yeah, but my question, maybe those effects are symmetric. The positive and the negative forecast error may affect their behavior differently.
I see. That's a great question. Sorry, I misunderstood it. Yeah, that's one another thing we are trying to address. We are thinking that the effect could be asymmetric and nonlinear. So we are trying to construct different variables, but we haven't have a very well organized. We haven't wrapped up the findings so far, so I cannot incorporate it into our slides. That's one thing we would love to address. So that's really a good question. Thank you so much.
Okay, I have no further question.
So here, Christina have a comment like says, it sounds like there's an opportunity for app developers to tailor an app for farmers to use in their water allocation decisions and learn from their experience. Yes, Christina, that's a very, very good comment. And that's that you're definitely right. If farmers are more accessible to this information through like apps that you suggested, and so they would definitely more experience and would definitely more willing to incorporate the information into their decisions. And such app with a well development could also help them to learn further about the past information as well as the future forecast. That would be another way that we can another direction that we can address in the future. So thank you very much about this comment. And any other comments or questions?
Yeah, it was Dr. Lee, it was really good presentation. I just want to know, what is the accuracy of the forecast? Because sometime what happened, farmer can totally trust the weather prediction if the accuracy is more. So do you find that the accuracy has improved over a period of time, or do you have any statistic? I don't know whether you have or not, to say whether the predicted accuracy was, let's say, probably 60–80% or something like that. That's a one question. And second question, I just want to know, do they charge? How the particular agency provide the information to the farmers? Whether all the farmers are accessing that information, or I just wanted to know that. Yeah, thank you, Lee.
Okay, let me respond to the to the questions by order. So the first one is that actually we try to measure the accuracy by a simple way. So as I mentioned, the variable is constructed by this way. The forecast volume last year minus the realized stream volume, and then divided by the realized volume. So, and we transfer it into a percentage. So we know what's the difference in terms of percentage in last year's forecast and realized condition. And in the discipline regarding water forecast, hydrological engineers, they have a more strict definition regarding the accuracy. So actually they would have different, they have a very big model to predict the possible stream volume at different probabilities to be realized. So we do not take that into our study, but we just use the most probable number they released. So that's the way we measure it. So but I think that would be enough for our research purpose. And for the second question, actually in the study area, most farmers they are very interested and in learning the weather forecast, because as I just mentioned, each farmer may, even if they have the same, even if they face the same stream volume this year, different farmers may face different probability to receive the water because the water rights in this region would result in different probability to receive water. That's because the higher order of water right holder would receive water first. So if your water right is ordered at the last, then your probability to receive full water would be much less than the high order high priority owners. Okay, so in this region, when there's such kind of meetings or such publications, farmers are gathered and would attend. They would attend to such meetings to learn from the forecast released by the NCRS. So this has been a traditional in this area. So I think most farmers to check this information, and therefore they may have different way to interpret it with their experience, but according to our research, it looks like on average they all respond to the prior errors as well as to the potential updates over the 4 months. So I guess that's the situation in this region. Okay. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
Right, thank you. So any other questions or comments? If not, maybe I can let Dr. Xu start his presentation.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I believe you can see my screen now. And
yes, we are able to see.
Okay, and hi, I'm Long Zhongshi from Huazhong Agriculture University, and I will present this work, the consumer's preferences for eco-labels and the impact of information, a choice experiment on aquatic food in China, which is done with my co-author Xuan Chen, also from Huazhong Agriculture University. So the motivations of this started in the past decades, the aquaculture production has dramatically expanded. And along with this substantial growth, the associated food safety issues and the negative environmental impact have emerged. So to fix those issues, more and more aquatic food suppliers applied eco-labels. So the eco-labels include like the MSC label, ASC labels, and the organic labels. The MSC and ASC labels are specific for the aquatic food, so they are maybe not that familiar to you. So I have a picture here for those 2 labels. And the organic label is for all kinds of food. And those eco-labels require a safer and more environmentally friendly product process, and thus help establish a more sustainable aquaculture system. And also understanding consumers' preference for those eco-labels is crucial because consumers are the important demand side of the aquatic food market. And the next thing is why China is interesting. So first, China plays a leading role in the global aquaculture food market. China is the top producer, exporter, and the consumption of aquatic food in China is also among the top. And second, China has proposed a unique multi-level eco-label system. So unlike the international standard, where there are organic food and conventional food without any labels, in China, we have 3 eco-labels: the organic food, green food, and the hazard-free food. Those eco-labels are different in breeding, feeds, and additional inputs and animal welfare, and thus result in food with different levels of safety and the environmental impact. And the organic label in China follows the international regulations, and is the most stringent one, and followed by the green food, and the hazard-free food is the least stringent one. And as for the MSC and AS label I just mentioned, they are really uncommon in China. So in this study, we'll focus on this multi-level eco-label system. And then it's the contributions. So first, we study consumer preferences for China's unique multi-level eco-labels on aquatic food, including carp, sea bass, crawfish, and shrimp. So currently, many studies have examined many categories of food, like meat, vegetables, and fruits. However, despite the importance of the aquatic food in China, the studies on aquatic food are limited. And also, we investigate the impact of information. The reason that we are interested in the impact of information is that current studies fail to identify a clear preference order for those 3 eco-labels. This is surprising because those 3 labels are well defined, and from the most stringent one to least stringent one. However, the current evidence suggests that consumers treat those eco-labels indifferently. So we suspect that this is because consumers are with a relatively low level of knowledge about those 3 eco-labels, and thus they cannot distinguish those 3 labels and result in indifferent preferences. So we try to investigate whether additional information about those 3 labels would change their preferences for those labels. And also, as pointed out by Tchaikovsky's 2014 work, the information could impact, in addition to the preferences, it could also impact the consumer's choice uncertainty. So we want to check this point in this article. So here's the roadmap for the rest of this presentation. So since we applied the discrete choice experiment, so I will briefly introduce the experiment design and then introduce the sample we've collected, and then the empirical method, followed by the results, and end with the conclusion. So first is about the experiment design. Because we are interested in the eco-labels, so we have 2 attributes, the eco-labels and the price. We have 4 levels for the eco-labels, the hazard-free, green, and organic food, and the conventional food without any labels, which is the reference type. And we have 5 levels for the prices. And also, we divided our sample, randomly divided them into 2 groups. The control group without any information, and the treatment group with additional information about those 3 eco-labels, which is the table I just showed you. And each respondent was assigned with 8 choice sets, and here is a sample choice set. We have 3 alternatives with an opt-out option. And then it's about our sample. So after data cleaning, we have 799 samples in total, 400 in the control group and 399 in the treatment group. We also collect some basic demographic characteristics. And we test the difference between the control and treatment groups and find no significant difference between those 2 groups regarding the demographic characteristics. And then it's the empirical method. Because we want to investigate the impact of information on consumers' choice uncertainty, we apply a generalized multinomial logic model, or the GMNL model. And we assume a conventional linear utility specification like this. So here, the ASC is a constant for the opt-out, and the price is a continuous variable, and organic, green, and hazard-free are dummy variables that indicate whether the food is eco-labeled. And here, the epsilon is just the idiosyncratic error. And the interesting things about the GMNL model is that it accounts for the scale heterogeneity by allowing this parameter, the sigma, the scale parameter, to vary across individuals. And the larger scale parameters indicates a less level of choice uncertainty. So here, we assume the scale parameter follows a log normal distribution like this, And we incorporate the information dummy here, the DN, which indicates whether a respondent is in the treatment group or not. So here, the theta, the parameter associated with the DN, if we have a positive estimate of theta, it indicates that the consumer in the treatment group are with larger scale parameters, which means a lower choice uncertainty. And the eta here is just a random variable that captures the preference heterogeneity. And the gamma is a structural variable that indicating how the preferences are scaled by the scale parameters. And here are our main results. So we separately estimate the GMNL model for the control and the treatment group for each category of aquatic food on the study. So all the parameter estimates are significant and take the expected sign, like the price or negative and significant. And here, the interesting things are the main effects. So generally, all the parameter estimates here are positive and significant, which indicates that consumers are generally prefer all these three types of eco-labels, no matter with or without information. And if we look further into this result, we can find that in the control group, the preference order is more ambiguous. For example, like here, for the cup, the consumer preferred organic the most, followed by green and hazard-free. However, for the sea bass, they preferred green the most, right? And the same thing for crawfish and shrimp. However, in the treatment group, the preference order is more consistent with the regulations of those three labels. Consumers generally prefer the organic the most, followed by green and hazard-free. And those comparison is just based on the point estimates. So to investigate whether those differences are statistically different, significant, we also conduct word tests to test the difference between those preference parameters. So let's look at first panel here. And this number is the word statistics that tests the difference between preference of hazard-free and of green food. And we can see here, for the control group, most of the statistics are insignificant, which indicate that the consumer treats those three eco-labels indifferently. However, in the treatment group, we can find those statistics are more significant, and that indicates that consumers are treat those eco-labels differently. And then it's the willingness to pay estimates. So in addition to a more consistent and distinguishable preference orders for the treatment groups we just find, we also find that the willingness to pay in the treatment groups are generally larger than those in the control groups. And the difference are generally statistically significant. And we also pulled the control and the treatment group together. And here we want to investigate the impact of information. So our interest is focused on here, the theta estimates. So we can see here, most of the theta estimates are positive and significant, which indicates that, just like I just said, the consumers in the treatment group are generally with higher scale parameters, which means a lower choice uncertainty, though the significant level is not that high. Okay, so the last is the conclusion. We summarize our main findings here. So first, we find salient willingness to pay for all those three types of eco-labels with or without information across all categories of aquatic food on the study. And we also find strong evidence that providing information significantly improves their willingness to pay for those eco-labels. and result in a preference order that are more consistent with the regulations of those three labels. And lastly, we also found evidence that the information could reduce consumers' choice uncertainty, but it's less convincing due to the relative low significant level. Okay, thank you for your attention. Any questions or comments?
Yes, may I? So I have a question. I hope I do not misunderstand your data set, but I'm wondering how likely you may pull the four data set that's by two different foods, right? So how likely you can pull the four data set together and do the analysis one time and incorporate a variable that identify each of the food instead of using the subgroup of the data set. So now you do the analysis for cars, for sea bass, one by one, but how likely you can pull all the data sets together?
Okay, so it's an interesting question. Yes, so even for this pooled model, we separate different categories of food, say aquatic food. But if we want to, because the consumer's preference for different food, for different category of food are basically different. But you are right, if you want to put them together, maybe we can add some constant ASCs for each types of food. Or maybe we can try that. That's a good question. Okay, thank you. How to define? Okay, so yeah. So the hazard-free here is the table about those three eco-labels. So hazard-free, in fact, is the least stringent one. So it allows, there's no regulation about breeding and about animal welfare. It just requires the use of legal feeds. So it's basically just the least stringent one that's slightly better than the conventional food. Yeah. Am I answer your question? Okay. Any other question?
I mean, it was a really, Dr. Lamsang, it was really good presentation. Just wanted to know, if the label is playing eco-label is playing very important role, what extent it has succeeded in China? Still, it's an initial stage, or I just want to know, as compared to overall, what extent it has played an important role.
Yeah, that's a good question. I should introduce more about this. In fact, those labels have established for like a decade, but yeah, that's the issue. Even though they have been applied for many years, but consumers still cannot distinguish those labels. So that's also a motivation of our study. So why this is the situation? Yeah, that's a good question.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have a quick question.
Oh yeah, I see your question.
My question is uncertainty. Could you please explain again how did you measure uncertainty?
Yes, here. Okay, so here is about the uncertain part. So because we apply the random utility framework, so this sigma in fact, this sigma parameter, the scale parameter, in fact, scale the preference parameter beta. So if we have a larger scale parameters, that means the determinist part of the utility is larger, because we can say here we have a random part, right, and the determinist part.
Yeah.
And if the beta are larger, right?
Yeah, it's what I thought. So I wonder, when you were thinking about the design, this scale parameter it gives you the uncertainty for the whole sample, but is it important to measure uncertainty at the individual level? I know that you can do it by asking you can use different scales, but I was curious whether it will be interesting to measure uncertainty at the individual level by asking a question like how certain, a simple way to do it is like how certain you are of preferring this food or something like that. So when you were designing that, did you thought about that? And why will be, I'm just curious. Like,
okay. Yes, I hopefully partially understanding your question. So yes, of course, you can ask the consumers about the uncertainty about the question. In fact, it's a way to measure the uncertainty. But the problem with that is, even though the consumer, so first, whether the consumer themselves can correctly measure their uncertainty about the question. There are some measurement errors about the direct question, like you mentioned, and so we want to measure the impact of the uncertainty with another way, maybe an indirect way, that to avoid the measurement errors. Okay. And other questions? Okay. If not, I will stop the sharing. Okay, so Christina, I think that's all. I'm the last one to present today, so.
Right, it looks like there's no other presenters in today's virtual section, right? Am I right?
Yeah, I'm the last one. Okay. We have finished the session, I believe.
Well, thank you all, and it's a great privilege to talk with you. So, how about you can stop this section?
Yeah.
Right now.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
Professor Lee and Ling Zong, and special thanks to Professor Christina. And again, we had some questions from Professor Milo. Yeah, thank you so much. It was a great privilege. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.